This is why the R5 C is the most capable hybrid camera on the market and why I'm still selling it. First, some background. I can name a few cameras over the years that I can specifically say impacted my career. When I first was getting into paid photo shoots, I invested in the original Sony A7R. At the time, I only had $600 for a camera, and this was the best that I could afford. Worked out because not long after, my work asked me to start making their videos, shooting on their Sony A7 III. That combo got me through a lot of the early stages of my filmmaking career. After leaving that job and realizing how much video work I found myself doing, I sold the A7R for a Lumix GH5. As legendary as that camera was as a great video camera, I also fell in love with the photos I got out of that. A few years down the road though, it was time for an upgrade. And this is where things got complicated. It was at this point that I started to make friends in the camera space. And while that is and was awesome, it meant that I had a lot more opinions sent my way. Ultimately, I swapped camera systems every few months looking for the right fit. But the camera I kept coming back to, though, was the Canon R5. Maybe it was the capability for the price. Maybe it was because the majority of my friends were on Canon. It doesn't matter. That's what I stuck with. I've shot hundreds of hours on R5 bodies, made almost 94% of my career earnings on an R5, and have bought and sold mine 6 times. So the camera must really be great then, right? Imagine a no compromises high resolution photo camera that can shoot 8K 60 FPS 12-bit RAW internally. That's the Canon R5 C. And as you can see, the image quality is amazing. Some of the best images of my life came out of one of these. So what's wrong with it? I know I said no compromises, but there are a few less than ideals. There's no IBIS or in-body stabilization. While that right there might be a deal breaker to some, I do think it works in this camera's benefit. One of the worst things I dealt with on my regular R5 was the infamous Canon wobbles in the corners of my videos. The only time it was a non-issue was when I was standing still. If I moved at all, the wobbles were there. So I'd rather not have that, especially as a filmmaker. I'd much rather have a cleaner image and just adjust my shutter speed and apply stabilization in post when I was looking for a smoother shot. On top of that, I do find the digital stabilization to be really solid when trying to get stable shots handheld. That and rigging, which is the second compromise of the R5 C, the battery life. When I got my first R5 C a couple years back, this was such a deal breaker, I sold the camera. That said, with the newer LPE6 batteries from Canon, I see upwards of 90 minutes. Not all day by any means, but good enough that I don't need to rig external power to fly it on a gimbal. And when I do want the extra power for all-day shoots, this piece of kit costs me less than $100 and lasts all day. Plus, it only takes 30 seconds to set up. Another complaint that most filmmakers have is that there's only a micro HDMI. I used to be in this camp, but honestly, we've all blown it way out of proportion. With a cage and this little adapter from SmallRig, I had this set up with a full-size HDMI in a couple of minutes, and I left it on there for months. I threw the camera in bags, flight cases, and did tons of shoots, and the first thing to go was the sheathing because it kept rubbing on my V-mount plate. So if that's all the issues this camera has, what are some of the benefits? I love the dual menus. It feels like I have a specific tool for a specific job, and I can set up all my custom buttons and menus accordingly. And I love this VND adapter. Because I only use EF glass, I never bother swapping filters. And I mentioned it before, but the image quality for the price is incredible, both photo and video. I mean, there's not a single hybrid camera on the market that maintains this high resolution of a sensor, has a mechanical shutter, records 8K video, has internal cooling, and does internal RAW all in the same body. I mean, it's almost too good to be true, right? I mean, yeah, it doesn't have open gate, but at least the file sizes are manageable. Going back on my camera journey I talked about in the beginning, there's still a reason I kept leaving this platform. All these things are great on their own, but as we zoom out and look at the bigger picture, the issue with the R5 C isn't the camera, it's Canon. I only use EF glass. Not because it's any better, but because RF lenses are crazy expensive and don't feel like they're up to the task of repeated abuse. Outside of vintage lenses and worn out EF lenses, there are no other options though. And while I'm sure this is great for Canon, It's a real letdown on their platform overall. Outside of even the R5 C, cameras like the R6V or Canon C50 will struggle to find a foothold with any shooters not already heavily invested in the Canon ecosystem. I think for filmmakers and shooters doing bigger, higher budget shoots, or looking to mix in with the cinema camera world, this is a perfect personal companion camera. Most of the lenses used on a film set are going to be manual focus and adaptable to RF anyway. I mean, even if you're a photographer, this may be less of an issue because even if autofocus starts failing you on your aging EF glass, you're still behind the camera to take over. So who does this really hurt? The creator, the solo filmmaker, the ones who step in front of the camera and rely on newer tools and systems to do more and make it easier to achieve their creative vision. Especially when we start looking outside the physical tools and start looking at some of the software. Canon is really falling behind. Sony's Monitor and Control app and Creators app are hands down amazing and literally save creators hundreds if not thousands. Not to mention the team at Monitor Plus that adds to that and adds support for even more cameras. And then you have the team building ZR Control that does the same for Nikon shooters. Heck, even Lumix and Fujifilm have apps that actually work for simple remote monitoring. Between that first-party support and third-party manufacturers' adoption of these other brands, it becomes impossible for me to recommend that anyone buy into the Canon ecosystem unless they already have a significant amount of Canon gear. That's why I'm selling mine, and my C70, and all my L series glass. The reason I can never stay with Canon is because it was just a tool for client shoots. Anytime I go out to shoot my own content, I immediately feel how clumsy of a tool they are for that. Ultimately, as I transition to being more part content creator, part filmmaker, there's just better tools for the job. And if I'm being honest with myself, and if you are too, do we really need raw video? Do we really need OpenGate? Do we need 6K or 8K? I would argue that the biggest impact a camera can have is your barrier of entry to going out and shooting something. A camera that makes it easier for you to go out and shoot is going to be a camera that you actually shoot with. Shooting more and creating more is going to have a greater impact on what clients you get more than any new camera will. All cameras these days are great. The only thing lagging behind is us.